Hi everyone, and welcome along to today's video. Before I begin about this important subject, someone asked me where my beer bottle opener had gone to, the one with my Norca on it. Well, it's still here. Yes, there it is. Okay, it's just been moved, that's all, and because I stand here I kind of cover it. It's alright, it's not gone anywhere. I'm still drinking a beer. Okay, let's move on. Okay, back in the bad old days, shall we say, of plumbing, gas fitting, electrics. I'm talking about 60s to about the 90s. All sorts of things used to happen when money got a bit short. Now we all know that this at the moment, this time we're going through is going to be one of going short because the prices have gone up on the energy bills and it's going to be a tough winter, we all know that. But these tough times coming were also the tough times that hit back in the early 70s, especially when there were strikes and there was a general turn down in the economy and everybody seemed to be out of work. So what did they do to get by? Well, these things I'm going to show you are just a history lesson. You're not to try any of them. I'm just showing you what I would come across typically in the odd house here and there. This was before you were to be gas registered. First of all, 3 utilities, okay, the water, the gas and the electric. So these same things were happening back in my early plumbing days, back in the early 70s. We'll start with water first, shall we? Let's have a look at this little drawing. Here then is another of our dodgy drawings, sorry about that. Okay, mains comes in, stopcock, and this obviously only used to happen in houses that had water meters. Back in the early days, a lot of councils had them, some didn't at all. But if it did, there would be a water meter behind the main stopcock, and then the main went into the building. So, what did some people do that was rather naughty? I should tell you. Now, this only used to happen if you had a black plastic main put in. It was black plastic in the early 70s. The blue didn't come into a lot later, but it didn't matter. They could do that to that as well. But they would cut through the main here, and although it was live, what they did was they'd dig a long trench here so that when you cut through and behind it, you could flick that up and get the water shoot up there. Once you did that, you could get a stopcock on to the end of the pipe. So once that was on, you could shut it off and join it back on to existing plastic. And as I say, they'd have a long trench right through here to give you plenty of playroom. Then what they do, very sneaky, they would run a pipe around here, teed off, and around here and down here, underground, so you couldn't see it. And obviously there would be another stopcock, could be anywhere here, round about there we'll say, another stopcock, and then they would shut this one off and turn this one on. This would have a brick or something over the top so that it wasn't easily visible there's anything that had been going on. This would all be filled back in, it would look quite normal. And what happened was that they would say shut that, open that. Water would go around that way, it couldn't go back that way anyway to the meter, it was off there anyway, nothing could happen. Water was now flowing in this direction around here. Now, say this is just a little history lesson on what used to happen years ago. I'm just telling you how people used to fill things, and obviously it's blatant stealing from the water company, isn't it? You know, but when people are desperate, they do desperate things, and this was one of them. This chap was found out in the end and fined heavily for what he did. But that was one of the things that went on with the water. Now there is something else happened that can happen to you. That happened to my daughter when she moved into her first little 2 up, 2 down house, and I'll show you on another little drawing. As you can see from this drawing, these block of houses here, they're all tiny little 2-bedroom things, you know, and all not together. One of the late sort of 90s houses how they were built. But my daughters lived in this end one here, and a family with 2 children lived next door. And you can see what happened. It got up to the meter here and it got crossed, and that meter that was reading my daughter was crossed into this house, and the house that should have been for them was crossed into my daughter's. So you can gather what happened. We got that water bill was being sent to this house, and my daughter couldn't believe quite how high the water company was. How dear this expensive water is in the southwest. I know it's one of the highest priced areas, but this was really off the scanner, until she called me round just to have a look, make sure it was all right. And of course, when I turned this water off here, it didn't turn her water off. It kept going. I went, oh, that's strange, and it had her number written on the box for that house. Very strange. So I went next door. I thought, I'm just going to try something. I turned this one off and it was shut. My daughter's house off. So you can see how things can go awry. And this one was marked as 1, 2, 3, 4 down the road and the numbers. So that was the meter that was counted for my daughter's house. Just something, you never know, it can happen. Best to check sometimes, especially in new builds when, you know, the whole site is filled with mud and muck, and it's a very easy thing to do. You know, I mean, I've made that really exaggerated going around to there, but they were a bit closer than that, so it's easy to cross them over. But so that was another thing, but that was accidental, nothing intentional at all. And just to let you know, my daughter never got the water money back that she paid extra. Well, and there you go. So we move on. Right, now we're going to move on to the other two utilities, gas and electric. There's a gas meter there, my one down in the garage. And as you can see, the meter dials face you, don't they, to read them. So fancy my astonishment when I walked into a flat to find that there was no dials. The meter was round the other way, facing the wall. The dials were, what the heck's gone on there? And that when I was a little bit thick to realise that someone had swapped the meter round, turned the whole thing backwards, and if I could see the other face, the dial was against the wall, I would actually see that it was going backwards. And this was an old trick to make the meter go backwards. And on a free monthly bill, you would pay only 1 month, because you would do 1 month backwards, 1 month forwards, and that meant they equalised out and then just pay 1 month on the third month. A popular con trick, but I only saw it a couple of times in houses, to be fair. So, but don't ever be tempted to do anything at all like this. You will get prosecuted, you will get done good and properly for touching gas of any sort, any appliance anyway. Do not attempt this, alright? This is just a history lesson. That's all I'm giving you on what else used to happen. Now, one other thing used to happen, they would caught a friend doing this. He'd undone his gas meter, put it on the floor. This is back in early 71. His gas meter was on the floor and he had a Hoover attachment connected to the inlet end on suck. This again had the desired effect of turning the meter dials backwards, and he was sucking it back till it got to where he wanted it to be, and then he reconnected the gas meter. Once again, I'm just telling you this for history lesson, just what happened does not happen now, right? Okay guys, absolutely not. Very last one I ever saw was a gas meter pipe. A piece of that had been sort of kind of connected straight to the inlet, so they turned the meter off there, put a long piece of this on, bypassed the meter and connected it up here. And it bypassed the meter. Once again, as I say, an absolute taboo, but things went on in those early 70 days that unmentionable, and it'd all be done by cowboys, you know. I mean, the fact they didn't blow themselves up was quite incredible, really. Okay, so let's move on to electric now, shall we? Here then we have my electric meter. Okay, there she be, and the incoming main from the street through a massive great fuse and out along the top and into this meter. So what did guys do? I mean, there must have been quite a few shocks and jolts, I'm sure, but what they did basically was to take these out and bypass the meter. Right, they took it straight by, and they either joined these two wires together somehow or another. I don't know how they did, but they did. Or they took these two out and connected it straight on the incoming line to save the meter reading anything. And again, people didn't die from doing such a thing, I'll never know. Highly dodgy, highly illegal, and I think a few people were prosecuted for doing such a thing. So once again, this is just a history lesson, folks, not ever to be tried by anyone ever. And if you do see anything, do report it. There you are then, just a little history lesson on what used to happen in the bad old days. Thank goodness regulations have come in that mean you can't touch gas at all unless you are gas safe registered, know what you're doing, and obviously electric, you've got to have all the latest qualifications, and even water, you've got to be qualified to handle that as well these days. So all good stuff. It means nothing untoward happens unless someone is a real villain and reckless and decide they want to try one of these stupid things that I've just showed you. The 70s were desperate times, and because there was no regulations around these type of things, people tried it. Obviously they did, because it was just seen as, well, let's give it a go, you know, there's no regulations, there's no one to stop us in the sense. But they knew what they were doing. They knew it was against the law really to be stealing electric, gas or water. It's not yours for the stealing, someone else will be paying for it while you robbed it, as it were. So I'm pleased all the good guidelines that have come towards. Now, if you know of any other sneaky tricks that were done back in the days, I'm sure people would love to hear about them. They're the only ones that I know about that I'd come across in houses, and duly report them when I got home. Okay, that's about it though. You know where to go. Usual place, Derrickton 33. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.